Okay, so this is a quick demo. Can everybody see my screen? You might have to unmute and
Yes.
say yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, great. I'm going to open up a new file. Since I know I have three to do, I'll just go ahead and select three artboards so I can have one of each of these explorations on each artboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define my parameters. So I'm just going to make a box, and this box can have a fill just to make it easy because we're actually going to turn these into a template. So I held down Shift and Option to copy and paste. I can also select it, go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. So that's two ways that I can create these. And if I rubber band select them and go to Object, Group, I can then select some of the alignment features that are here in the windows and place them all three in the center. Now, to make it easier, I'm actually going to go to Edit Artboards, and I'm going to delete these two artboards. If I hold down Option and move over, I can duplicate the artboard and everything on it. So it just makes the working load a little bit faster when I can learn how to duplicate artboards. I'm selecting Command plus sign to zoom in. And I'm going to open up my layers panel, which says that it's already open somewhere. Oh, here it is. It's just on the bottom. If I double click on the inside of this square where the image is in, I can select template and click OK. And that way these boxes will not change. And I'll go ahead and make a new layer by selecting down in the bottom of the layer panels, create new layer, and then select the layer, make sure I'm working on it. If you notice this red color here, that means the bounding box on figures on this layer will be red. I'm going to go ahead and start with the pen tool and just try to create a shape because I want to show the instructor I understand line with all four line types. And since there's a lot of negative space, it might not be figure dominant. So I'll go ahead and give that a black fill. And then I'm going to try something different in this one. So I'm using the pen tool, creating a closed path, using the selection tool, and moving it in the center. Now I want this one to be completely different. So maybe I'll jump over and I'm going to use the brush tool and just select basic. And I'm going to make a figure of lines. And let that be my figure dominant composition. I like this figure here, and instead of having to do a whole bunch of new work, I'm going to actually duplicate these lines. Right? I'm going to duplicate these lines, open up the swatches menu, swatches window. And here's this cool thing you can do. I'm just going to drag this set of lines into my swatch, and I have this really cool image here. I'm going to create a new square because the one in the background is on a template. And I'm going to select this as a swatch and add it to my fill. Now I need this to be ground dominant, so I can see there's still already too much negative space. So the next tool I'm going to use is the scale tool here on the toolbar. If I double click the scale tool, I have this option, transform patterns. So I'm going to uncheck transfer objects. And I'm going to maybe reduce it, make it a little smaller to 75%. Uncheck and check preview. Click OK. I want to repeat that because I'm still seeing too much negative space. So I'm going to go to my keyboard and select Command D. And every time I hit Command D, it'll change it. I like for patterns, sometimes when they're straight up and down, they look a little weird. So if I go back to my scale tool, click and hold and select the rotate tool, double click on the rotate tool, and I have those same options here, transform patterns, transform objects. And I'm just going to change it, making sure that I have something in all of the corners, and click OK. And that will be my first exploration. If I'm going to continue with the brush tool, maybe I make a change to the brush tool, and I'm just going to do a bunch of lines. And so since I'm tired of making lines, I'm just going to rubber band select all of those lines. Use the bounding box holding down Shift to kind of duplicate them, holding down Option. Duplicate them. If I go up here in the corner, I can rotate them. And then I'll select that pairing and duplicate that. And then I'll select all four and duplicate those and duplicate them again. And as you can see, they're on the edges. They're going over the edges. In order to fix that, I'm going to use what's called a clipping mask. So I'll make a square on top so you can see your square on top. And then I'm going to rubber band select all of this entire area. There's two ways to do it. You can go Object, Clipping Mask, Make, or shortcut key 7, Command 7, and I'll just delete this little extra. I'm noticing I probably still need some more on the edges because there's still too much. So if I want to take away the clipping mask, I can do Edit, Undo Clear, Edit, Undo Clipping Mask, and then put this box here and maybe make some more brush strokes in the corner just to make sure it's just a ground. So the first one that I created is a regular repeat pattern, but it gives the illusion of the texture because of the line. And this one is more of an irregular texture where things are repeating, but they're repeating at irregular intervals. I'm just using the brush tool, and see how my box is underneath those last pieces. I can then also go to Object, Arrange, Bring to the Front, and then repeat that. Object, Clipping Mask. I'm holding down the space bar to move around without changing anything. Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And then I still have some extra pieces, which I could delete. I can go back in and delete later. Now let's talk about this last one. I know it has to be a ground dominant composition. And of course, like I'm trying these solutions and I hope you try different solutions, but I might be like my teacher said to make it ground dominant. It's ground dominant now. Okay, so figure dominant, ground dominant. Let's talk about ambiguous. The quickest way to make something ambiguous is to use the tools that we've already explored. So I'm making a box and I'm going to work with the pen tool. And I'm going to draw a line all the way down the middle. If I hit default, if I hit D on the keyboard, it gives it default white fill. So I have an extra dot. Then go back to the selection tool, and I'm going to select both of these. And can someone tell me what's the next tool that I should use to split this into two shapes?
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder, that's right, good job. All right, Pathfinder. So here in the Pathfinder, and I'm just going to divide, and I'm going to ungroup, Object, Ungroup, and I'm going to make one of them white. There I have figure ground ambiguous, and I can try that in a host of other ways. So for figure ground ambiguous, you want to think 50-50. You can also use the brush tool. I want this to be just a basic line. And here's my square that I'm placing over. Select both, divide, object, ungroup. Now I can take this one. Another really cool tool is the eyedropper tool. I can go to the eyedropper tool and select this square, and whatever appearance is on this one will grow to that one as well. All right. So another way to create figure ground ambiguity is to have shapes intersect on the corners. So I can't tell where one figure ends or the other begins, or what is the figure and what is the ground. So that's another way. But there's lots, the solutions to this are, they're endless. And so I encourage you to do some playing around with these explorations, right? So to make a new artboard, you select Edit Artboards, and you can definitely create the artboard. And here in the settings here, you can make it letter, and it'll match the artboards that you have. You can also edit or delete artboards by hitting delete on your keyboard. If I hold down Option, see how my mouse changes? I can copy that artboard and everything on it. And it's telling me the template won't move because I've locked the template. So that's just what that means. So I might have to go back in on that last one and add a box if I don't see it. Okay. Are there any questions about, and I'll go ahead and stop recording.